20 years ago today, a film that fans had been waiting 20 years to see opened. And, well, to say it wasn't well received would be putting it mildly. I'm your host, Logan Stoodley, and in this special episode of Lights Camera Reaction, we discuss the 1999 film Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Written and directed by George Lucas, the film stars Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ian McDermott, Frank Oz, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Pernilla August, Ahmed Best, and Ray Park. Joining me this episode is Caitlin Stoodley. We will discuss some of our favorite parts of the film, our least favorite parts of the film, and whether or not the film deserves its reputation. So, this is something I was horrible at doing in the last run of Lights Camera Reaction, but this time I'm going to try to be better. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Caitlin. Do I need to say my last name?
I would go ahead and go for it.
Caitlin Stoodley.
Are you related to the Logan Stoodley sitting next to you?
In fact, he is my brother.
What do you do, Caitlin?
What do I do?
Well, not necessarily what you do professionally,
How do you define yourself as a person?
What's if you were to give your elevator pitch on who you are?
And who I am?
Yeah.
I am a young woman who I work by day. I work in customer service, and by night I watch Netflix.
And occasionally act in theater.
Occasionally.
We're talking Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace today. And Caitlin, I know you totally did your homework for this episode.
Yeah, listen, I definitely did not watch the movie again. I did not, because here's the thing. If I was going to watch a Star Wars movie, I would not pick that one. So it's like, why would I then take my time to watch it, even if we were doing this? Like, I don't care that much.
Okay.
So I guess that's intro into my opinion of The Phantom Menace.
With that intro in mind,
there are still parts I like.
Let's dive into that aspect. What would you say your favorite moments or favorite characters or scenes are in Phantom Menace?
Well, so my favorite part of the whole movie is Amidala's costumes. Let's be real.
That's fair. I think there are basically groups of people out there who that's their whole jam is Amidala's costumes.
I mean, there's issues with the fact that they elect a queen, because first of all, that's just not how queens work. Make her a president or something. Why? She was elected queen at that doesn't make any sense.
It's Star Wars.
That is stupid. If you're gonna use things like queen and chancellor and prime minister, senator, make them mean the same thing to me as they do, or make up another word. Just don't make her a queen. Make her a flibberber. I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent. But definitely, she is the movie for me. Natalie Portman, I wanted to be her.
Yeah, just even though we were talking about the costuming work, I swear every scene they threw her in a new costume.
It was amazing,
and they were all intricate.
Yeah,
the level of detail that went into them is amazing.
Yeah,
I've seen some people who've cosplayed in Padme's costumes from various films, and it seems like every time they're like, "Oh yeah, I was working on this."
Well, you have
for
to.
Months.
You have to, or else it looks shitty, and then it's why?
Well, it's not just that it looks shitty. It's just realizing to get screen accurate, someone spent months working on it, which means that there was a team that probably also spent months working on just Amidala's costumes.
I know, and it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
But let's talk about Padme and Natalie Portman for a sec. Unlike you, I did rewatch it yesterday.
Oh, yeah. And
I did my homework.
Listen, I still got A's.
And just realizing how we get hints of her determination, her bravery, and the fact that she's just not willing to take it. She's going to fight.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole thing. She's okay, you guys are gonna go off into this weird planet. I'm coming too. And
dude, I love the whole interplay between her and Qui-Gon, where she's the Queen does not approve, and he's the Queen doesn't need to know. And of course, you can tell, especially at the end, that Qui-Gon knows the entire time that Padme is the Queen, but he's just not taking her shit.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, she's the only part of the movie that, I love Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
As a person,
I think that's a universal in Star Wars.
Yeah. He's great, and they did him. They could have done more. They could have been better, but
Yeah, because the thing with Liam Neeson, and I think this is the same thing with like Alec Guinness and a lot of other, Ian McDermott, who does Palpatine, you can talk all you want about how clunky the dialogue is, or like.
But when you make that dialogue flow out of your mouth, that's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill. You have these incredibly talented thespians who are basically just giving it their all, or being like, yes, this is cheesy, but I'm going to still do it justice. And I think that's one of the reasons why Star Wars, for all of its clunkiness, often works, is because these people they are just like, no, I'm going to treat it seriously.
I mean, and I think that might be partly why Phantom Menace, in my opinion, doesn't really work, is because it centers so much around, like, this young boy and this inexperienced actor, and it just sounds stupid.
Is there anything else you liked or loved?
I mean, the pod race is cool, but I think there's better like action sequences, I think, in even the other Star Wars movies. So I'm not like, meh.
Watching it yesterday, I was kind of caught by how much it did capture my attention the entire time. Like, I was not necessarily enthralled, because I've seen it before.
Yeah.
And this is in many ways like a recap for Star Wars, but the fact that I was like attentive the entire time does speak to the craftsmanship that went into that sequence.
Great editing.
It's great, like, especially the sound, like Sebulba's pod racer.
Oh. And then it like, and then it goes?
Yeah, or like just the noises of the pod race, and there's no music.
Really?
For like, up until the very end of that sequence, it is all done in sound design.
Oh, that's cool. I see. Things I would have noticed had I watched it again.
Yeah, and so it stands out a little bit. And then I also was thinking about this yesterday while watching it. The first fight between Qui-Gon and Maul in the desert. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, when they're running to the ship.
Yeah, when they're running to the ship. How quick and fast it is compared to the lightsaber duels of the original trilogy. That was like... that is bizarrely fast. That's like peak lightsaber fighting technique.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one thing that they really focus on in all of the newer movies, is making the lightsaber fights like more fast-paced and not like old men and robots. I guess the lightsaber fight at the end is cool. Yeah. And that music is awesome.
Yeah, the music...
So good.
Of all of John Williams' music for the prequels is amazing.
All of John Williams' music for everything is amazing.
So I think that's something to just also give plaudits to, is the music.
Yeah, the music's great, but I mean, I'll just listen to the soundtrack and not watch the movie. Actually, I probably won't even do that. But I mean,
I'll listen to the soundtrack. Yeah,
you will. Yeah, this movie. Ugh.
All right, so let's before we go into our negatives, what is your experience with the film? Like, what was your first impression of the film? Like, can you go back to being a kid and watching it?
When I was a kid, I really liked it and I loved it. I even liked Jar Jar Binks. And then, like, it didn't age well for me. I feel like you realize, there's some weird racial undertones with this character and this society, and it's not a thing that I picked up as a kid. But it's kind of like, ooh,
because I have a vague memory. Like, I am fairly certain, because I actually did do the research once to be like, do I have this memory, or is it just me thinking I have this memory of? Apparently ABC did a broadcast of the original trilogy in like 96, and I remember watching bits of it.
Oh, really?
But it was like, it never kind of connected with me. So for me, my first real Star Wars experience that wasn't just snippets on the television was because it was around my birthday.
Right.
And so as part of my birthday present, one of my friends' parents brought me along when they went to go see Star Wars, because I mean, we can briefly talk about how our parents aren't movie people.
They're not movie people.
There we go. We briefly talked about it. So, like, that would have been my only way of going.
Although, Mom has seen the original Star Wars when it came out. She did go see that in theaters. So
she saw it twice.
That's an experience that none of us will ever get to have. So, I mean, kudos to Mom for not being a movie person, but having seen Star Wars in theaters when it first came out.
Twice. And
Why did she see it twice?
She went with a group of friends, and then she took our uncle.
Oh, Wesley?
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
So, yeah, no, it was...
Brother-sister date.
Yeah.
Adorbs.
But I don't think she watched Empire or Return of the Jedi.
No, she was probably like, all right, this one's enough.
This one's enough, and I'm done.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, continue with your story.
So that my first experience real experience with Star Wars was seeing Episode 1 in theaters. I cried when Qui-Gon died.
Oh,
I totally legit cried in the theater.
How old were you? Like 11?
I think I turned 11.
It came out in 99, right?
Came out in 99, so I think I was still 10, and like 4 days later I turned 11.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I was hooked. And like you, as I got older, just like the cracks in the film really became more apparent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that this is what...
It's the reason you
this
now
is the reason
are a
I
Star Wars
got
fan.
in. And
well, then it's probably the reason I'm a Star Wars fan, because the reason I'm a Star Wars fan is because you were a Star Wars fan, so...
Yeah, and I remember at one point Mom berating me.
Speaking sternly
to me about the fact that I was so hyped about that movie, and I was talking to you about it and being like, oh man, I can't wait till you see it. I can't wait to see it. And you, even at that young age, could still do like really good accents. And so I was having you do Amidala quotes in accent
I don't remember
from
that.
the movie. And you got upset once because you realized that you hadn't seen it yet and you really wanted to see it. And I was having you say quotes from the movie, and it just was. And Mom was like, "Logan, stop it.
Yeah, like leave me alone.
Let her wait until she can see it, and then you can do that."
That's so fun. I will say that like one of my favorite quotes is like when they're in like the Senate and like Amidala's there on the like floaty thing, and then she's like, "Oh, what does she say? Oh, I can't even remember the quote now." But it's like she's like talking about
if this body
no, that like. I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership, and her voice is all like low and stuff. And I'm like, who talks like that? Why does she change her voice? Why is she into this? This doesn't make any sense. Like, why? So like, she campaigned and everything as like normal, like Padme Amidala, no makeup. Everybody knows what she looks like, her real voice. And then she puts on the makeup and the costumes, and
apparently
her voice drops like 2 octaves.
To go into crazy Star Wars lore, because I know the answer for this. Because there's an answer for it.
What is it?
The idea of an elected monarch is not unique to the Star Wars universe in the Star Wars universe. But the whole costume and makeup was like a sign of the office. So kind of like how politicians always wear a lapel pin.
Sure.
The monarch of Naboo gets done up in makeup.
But then her voice has to be lowered.
Apparently, it just is like the regal tone that they adopt.
Because you notice there's a regal tone, and then there's like a regal new voice.
Yeah,
like, it's a little.
But you also notice if in A New Hope, it's one of the people like Carrie Fisher's accent is inconsistent. You realize Carrie Fisher, where she's like, I'm Senator Organa, does the regal voice. And then the moment they're like, we're going to blow up Alderaan, she's like, what? And it's just like the accent's gone. Yeah. So apparently that's a cultural thing in Star Wars, is to play the accent. Here's your nerdy fact of the day.
I think that explanation was come up with after the fact to explain. I don't think it was like, let's go in and like, you should have I don't think there was a conscious thought put into it
90% of Star Wars
I think it was like, let's explain why this is weird, and let's come up with the reason why she has a new voice. Like, I mean, and nobody knows what she looks like anymore. I mean, like, okay, all right.
Well, but yeah, no, it's as much as I will probably spend the next bit joining you and knocking on the film, I can't deny the fact that this is what got me into it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I ever saw this in theaters or not. I don't
think you did, but you've.
But I've seen like Attack of the Clones and
I've said this.
Everything afterwards, I for sure saw in theaters, but I don't think I did Phantom Menace.
You didn't do Phantom Menace because that would have required Mom and Dad to take us, and that meant it was immediately dead. But this is something I've shared with a few people before, because Star Wars community right now has a troll problem, and
dicks. They're called dicks.
Oh no, whatever. I have my own internal monologue that I'm slowly putting down into written form, and I call them something else entirely.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But dick we'll go with dick for now. It's appropriate. Yeah. To where when people are like, oh, Star Wars is for young men. And I'm like, you know who has gone to me to see every Star Wars film in theaters since Attack of the Clones? Mm-hmm. It's been you. And I think the only reason you didn't go see Revenge of the Sith opening weekend with me is I think you had something going on with friends. And so you're like, I didn't like Attack of the Clones.
I liked Attack of the Clones.
When it came out,
When it came out, I had a huge crush on Hayden Christensen, knowing he was a terrible actor.
Oh, we'll have to bring you back now for Attack of the Clones if we ever do that.
But, I will rewatch that one. I would do that. Also, talk about costumes. Anyway.
Anyway, the big thing for me is, I think on that case, it was like you had something going on with friends, so you weren't able to go, and then I saw it, and I was like, we have to go, and we saw it, like, the next day.
Okay, see, there's so many, I don't remember this, but I'm glad that you have a memory for all of these wonderful childhood moments.
So, they're all about Star Wars.
Yeah.
All the other childhood moments are gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you remember that I don't remember at all.
Well, this has a place of nostalgia. Let's start diving into, like, things we don't like. And why don't you start?
I mean, I feel like I feel like I feel like a lot of it is boring.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's boring. And it's like, also now Jar Jar Binks is annoying and like uncomfortable to watch as an adult. As with the rest of like the whole Gungan storyline, and it's just kind of like weird that it's like it doesn't fit in with anything else.
They put a cartoon character in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
It's like if Roger Rabbit appeared.
It's weird. I mean, and like cool for like the technology that could do it and blah 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 blah, but like and I feel so bad, but like poor Jake Lloyd, he's so hard to watch.
He is.
He's so hard to watch.
Like a part of like while watching this, I was thinking, I bet a lot of my complaints would be resolved if two things had changed. If they had toned down Jar Jar Binks from being a cartoon character,
or just got
rid of him, and if they aged up Anakin to be about the same age as Padme, so about 14.
Yeah, so it wasn't so weird.
Right, because it's really weird. Hey, I've had a crush on you since I was 9.
It's like, oh, now you're tall. Sure, let's go for it.
But, like, have them be kind of the same age, and then a lot of the stuff from the pod racing to the starfighter would have been easier to swallow.
Maybe.
But one thing I did notice, and because, I think Jar Jar and Anakin are the biggest weak points in this film.
Yeah.
I was also paying attention to the script this time. Now, George Lucas, as a scriptwriter, he leaves a lot to be desired. But I also notice, because a lot of what he has said is how he has always thought about kids when making Star Wars.
Right.
And I was paying attention to how some of the dialogue works, and I was just like,
oh, maybe this is broken down for kids to understand?
I don't think it's not just broken down for kids to understand. I realize, I'm like, if I was watching, say, Avatar The Last Airbender, or something like that, where it has adult themes, but is obviously made for children to watch and enjoy, Star Wars does a lot of the same things in episode 1 in the script, to where someone will state the obvious thing that's going on around, and you're like, come on, where's my subtlety? And then you realize in kids programming, that subtlety doesn't always exist.
Sure, but counter to that, look at how many great, well-written kids movies there are out there. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm not saying it's not as good because it's written for kids." There's some really great kids movies that aren't so painful.
I'm not saying that I like the approach, but all of a sudden it was like this was the first time it was the first time it clicked with me, where I'm like, oh, this actually, from that writing perspective, if this had been a cartoon, like kids TV series, it would have done all of the exact same things. And I don't know if that was intentional by Lucas, or if it's because Lucas is a clunky screenwriter. It's one of those things where I don't know the answer to that. But I was like, oh, okay, I get why they're stating the obvious right now, because a 6-year-old wouldn't understand it. Yeah. And as much as adult Star Wars fan Logan wants subtlety, apparently kid Star Wars fan Logan was okay with it.
Yeah. But I think that there's something to be said that, like, A New Hope, written by George Lucas and everything, has aged still so much better than this particular, than The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Like, so much.
I know
that can be contributed to, acting and everything else too. I don't know, but it's this particular one is just real bad. Just real bad.
Yeah, it's bad, but the thing I think there's a couple things. Let's go into the reputation. First off, the reputation is it's bad. There we go. We've been basically talking about that. But one of the things I've been finding myself thinking about when thinking back on this film is the fact that George kind of, when he made this film...
Oh, George.
Poor George. This one works as a standalone in some ways, the same way A New Hope does.
Sure.
Which is kind of, like, interesting to think about, that it doesn't necessarily... Yes, it's held up by the...
remove it and still understand everything that's going on in all the rest of the Star Wars movies?
Not necessarily. No. But, I mean, I think that doesn't...
Those midichlorians, we gotta explain that.
I mean, it doesn't help, like... Because I've ever talked to you about the Machete edit?
Oh, yes.
So, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Machete cut, or edit, or however you call it, is... Back after the prequels had come out and before anyone had ever thought there would be a sequel trilogy, there was arguments over what's the proper viewing order for Star Wars. Do you go prequel trilogy, original trilogy, or original trilogy, prequel trilogy? And a lot of the debate came around the fact that if no one had seen Star Wars before and somehow had avoided American pop culture, you have a big reveal in episode 4 of I Am Your Father from Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, the prequels would ruin that if someone starts from the beginning. And so the Machete edit was argued that, well, the viewing order should then be A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, so you get that big reveal, and you were sitting there like Luke going, no, that's not true, that's impossible. And then you go back to episode 2 and episode 3, cut out episode 1 entirely, get the backstory of the Clone Wars and Anakin, and then you finish it off with Return of the Jedi. And I think that idea helped cement the idea that
you don't need this movie.
But I've been thinking about, like, because I've had people make the argument to me that this is actually the best of the prequels.
Interesting.
And one of the reasons why people argue this, and I think it's an interesting argument, is the fact that this structurally has a solid beginning, middle, and end in terms of just not necessarily its execution or the writing of it, but it isn't where Attack of the Clones is kind of stuck in this weird thing where, oh crap, we need to set up everything for this Clone Wars, and then Revenge of the Sith is, oh crap, we have to do all this stuff with the lead of Darth Vader. Well, Clone Wars is kind of forgotten. So like Attack of the Clones builds up something that doesn't get delivered in Revenge of the Sith. There's all sorts of just structural problems between the two films, like Revenge of the Sith. The time frame that movie takes around, is it a period of weeks? Is it a period of months? No one really knows. It's not really clear. Whereas Phantom Menace is pretty damn solid in terms of the amount of time that's passing and hitting all of its needed beats and having decent action sequences. And as much as we can sit there and be like, this one would be better if we aged up Anakin, and this one would be better if we got rid of Jar Jar or toned him down, this film still had, if you took it apart from all the other Star Wars films and just was like, here's this thing, it still has a structure on its own that is lacking in, arguably lacking in the other prequel films.
It's like...
which is something I think maybe it deserves a bit of recognition for, the fact that it was doing that stuff.
Sorry. Hey, it's like, oh, you tried. It's like giving it a trophy for participation.
Yeah.
Meh.
I mean, it doesn't mean I still don't think it ups it to the level of being good, but I do think it is an argument that maybe, as much as we can talk about how the prequels are bad, I think there is an overwhelming urge to be overly harsh towards them because we just don't like aspects of it, and it doesn't live up to our ideal standard of what Star Wars should be.
Right. I think, yeah, probably true. I think, like, going back, I probably, if I'm ever going to go rewatch any Star Wars, I probably would never pick up any of the prequel movies.
They're awful.
I remember I did love Attack of the Clones specifically. So I might rewatch that for, nostalgia's sake. But I am the OG trilogy.
I think part of the other reason why a lot of people are kind of trying to rethink their stance on the prequels has been, I know you haven't watched it yet, if you ever will. I'm trying, is basically my argument, is the Clone Wars TV series. For being set in the prequel era, and you think, and you're just like, okay, I'm over it. It actually has, I'd say, some of the best Star Wars moments in Star Wars.
Well, but then that's great. still doesn't make the prequel movies that, like,
yeah.
you know.
But I think that's one of the
also, the prequels, like, totally, like, ruined Boba Fett.
I don't agree.
Well, I hate when you then go and watch the new, like, re-released original, and now it's his voice.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that they've now put this guy's voice into the original trilogy. Like, that's the part that's what I'm talking about. They ruined it.
Then Vader screaming, no, in Return of the Jedi now. You haven't probably watched it since you got it on Blu-ray, have you? On the Blu-ray release of Return of the Jedi, Vader screams no when he throws Palpatine over the edge. For our listeners, Caitlin just made a face.
Yeah, that's weird. I think, like, that's the thing, that's another issue I have with George Lucas, is, like, he just can't leave well enough alone. It's like he's a painter that's never done, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, sometimes, you know what, go make those edits and then watch it for yourself, George. Don't re-release it and make me not able to find the original version.
Well, I mean, this is, again, a side note from episode 1, but I think where the special edition succeeds, no one complains. It's the fact that there's a lot of moments in the special edition where it fails, and that's why everyone complains.
Yeah.
Because screaming no in Return of the Jedi, no.
Also, why is he screaming no as he's throwing somebody over? Is he like...
They literally just took the no from Revenge of the Sith, where he screams no, and they
after Padme's, like, dead? Yeah.
Or, like, the Mos Eisley scene, where there's just, like, a bunch of noise, or inserting Jabba, and it's not great CGI. It's like, those are the moments that should have done it. But I've actually started to there's people online who have done remasters, or they've gone through and they've found original prints on film of
where Han shot.
Well, no, like, not just where Han shot first, like, we're talking original theatrical release. Mm-hmm. So, like, A New Hope and Episode 4 aren't even on the title crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some moments in there where I'm like, you know what, I think the special edition does it better. And I think those are moments where if they hadn't gone back and did it, they basically revitalized Star Wars for the 90s. Because otherwise those effects did not age well. And so where they went through and took effects that didn't age well and they just updated them is where they succeeded. Where they went and were like,
redid the story?
Where they went and redid the story, or they went and added a bunch of stuff, is not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely the kind of person who's never done tinkering.
Well, I mean, he sold it now, so.
I think it's in good hands, so.
Yeah.
But to bring it again back to...
Specifically
Phantom Menace, I'm still basically, after watching it, I'm still like, yeah, this isn't great, but I also wonder how much of my hatred for it has been burned in, and it's not necessarily fair. Like, objectively, I still think the film isn't good.
Right.
But I also am starting to wonder if my objectivity in terms of talking about how it's a god-awful piece of filmmaking has been tarnished by the fact that
you can't say
you couldn't escape it.
I will say though, the Phantom Menace is a great title. Like when you actually think about the Phantom Menace, like, ooh, what is that? Like,
I know, it's a really good title.
I mean, yeah.
And then you have Attack of the Clones, which is probably the clunkiest of all the titles.
Yeah.
No, it's a great title. And then I can't believe we haven't talked about this.
What?
Ray Park as Maul.
Oh, Darth Maul is a pretty great villain. He's pretty great. Like, and he doesn't speak, so he's like real scary.
He's just intimidating, very intimidating presence. And man, it's like every time Maul is on screen, you immediately are just like, okay, like,
because he's the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch that.
Actually, it's Palpatine.
Well, no. Oh, yeah, because he's more Phantom-y. I like to think of it as Darth Maul. Because
well, the Sith. You could argue that the Sith are the Phantom
Menace.
Menace.
Because he's the one that's, like, stalking them throughout their, like... I like to think that the Phantom Menace is Darth Maul, and that's my final opinion on that. Because, like, Palpatine... I'm kind of over.
Yeah, Machiavellian power plays and politics aren't necessarily going to be the easiest thing to portray in an action movie. But yeah, no, it's gotta give props to Ray Park.
Yeah, yeah.
And that goes back to my whole thing of I will eventually try to get you to watch parts of Clone Wars.
Sure.
Because he's back.
He's back.
Yeah. So I guess
Anyway.
any final thoughts on Phantom Menace?
I don't know if I will ever watch it again. I think I fell asleep trying to rewatch it once within the last 3 years or something, and I may not ever attempt to watch it again. We'll see. I might.
Because I know whenever I watch Star Wars, I always try to actually sit down and watch Star Wars.
No, see, I'll just pop in Empire Strikes Back at will.
Well, what I mean is I'm going to sit down and watch it, not just throw it in the background.
I thought you meant if I'm going to watch Star Wars, I'm going to watch all of them at
no,
all of them in order.
I will sit down and I will watch it. I'm going to be nope, for these 2.5 hours, I'm just watching this movie and try to stay off my phone and all that.
Yeah.
And the prequels are the only Star Wars films that I will throw on in the background, not because of necessarily love, but because I don't
have to pay
feel
attention
that level of dedication to them.
Yeah, I feel because I struggle with staying awake during movies in general, I feel I don't know that I will ever in my life be able to stay awake for the entirety of The Phantom Menace ever again.
By the way, for those of you listening, today, Caitlin and I are about to go see Avengers Endgame.
I'm drinking a lot of coffee.
I'm not sure what the over-under is on Caitlin sleeping, but let's just say the chances of you sleeping are not zero.
They're not, but I will say we decided to go see it at noon, so there's it's the middle of the day.
We're at peak Caitlin not falling asleep.
Yeah, we're at peak. If we had decided to go any later than 5, I feel there would be oof.
Right.
Oof. It's it doesn't matter how good the movie is, how loud it is, I can fall asleep. I've fallen asleep in the theater.
Many times.
Yeah,
so I guess let's just kind of sum it up. In terms of its reputation, would you say that
it is deserved? I was.
Here's my caveat.
Oh, okay.
I would say it deserves a bad reputation, but would you say that it deserves the harshness it's received?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, because really, when I'm the best things about this movie are the costumes and John Williams, which John Williams is one of the greatest parts of almost any movie he composes, in my humble opinion. But I think that those are the good things I have to say about it. Then it's.
It's I'm
also,
not
the
gonna
droids are stupid. We didn't even talk about those droids. I think they're just
the Roger.
Yeah, they're annoying.
Coruscant, that doesn't compute. Wait, you're under arrest.
Yeah, and they just look dumb. Anyway, sorry, side tangent. Doesn't need to talk about it, but yeah,
no,
I think
fine.
I think it deserves it.
I think it deserves a bad reputation. It's just it's the harshness that gets thrown at it in the prequels in general is over the top. I mean, we have to touch on the fact that Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks,
yeah, I do feel
the abuse that was directed at him drove him to suicidal thoughts.
That's shitty.
The general theory, no one's ever confirmed it, but the general theory is that the reason why Jake Lloyd has had issues as an adult comes from the fact he was bullied by adults for playing Anakin Skywalker. That's where I'm saying yes. Can we sit here and say that objectively it's a bad film? Yes, but does it deserve this?
Actors? That's stupid.
Yeah. Does this deserve the horrible... Do the people who made it deserve the horrible treatment they've got? Are the people who, bash on this and treat it no, I think there's definitely a toxic element. And this is just kind of universal Star Wars. We saw with Kelly Marie Tran after Last Jedi, is that there is definitely a toxic element in the Star Wars community that just needs to shut the fuck up and go away.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of what we've seen some racist and sexist elements in the Star Wars fandom, especially with these newer ones that have come out. And I don't think that you should people should. First of all, I think anybody that goes on Twitter or the internet or anything that and takes their time to call out an actor for whatever, they're just go get a life. That's stupid. I mean, I don't think we should be bullying
there were
people for getting work. But so that element is shitty, and I don't think that I don't think has to do with its reputation. That's just people who are dumb.
But I think it impacted its reputation.
Perhaps, yeah.
It definitely meant that calling it a piece of hot garbage and a lot of negativity was encouraged and enhanced by that lens. And as much as I will say I still don't think this is a good movie, I am finding that just kind of trying to watch it with fresh eyes. Like yesterday, I kind of tried to watch it and be like, just watch it like you're a film student and you've never seen this movie before.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And I would sit there and be like, yeah, it's not a great movie, but I wouldn't have sat there and called it the worst film of all time.
Well,
or
yeah.
a train wreck. There are good moments in the film, but for overall,
overwhelmed by the bad moments.
Yeah, and I wonder honestly if it literally is the two things that I thought of just like either toning down Jar Jar or, like you said, getting rid of him and aging up Anakin. I think that would have actually solved a lot of the problems.
Right, I feel bad because I do think that, like, you know, as much as I don't think that, like, you know, Jake Lloyd, who was like 10 when he made this, should have been like bullied. I feel like Lucas did him a disservice because he didn't know how to direct him into a good performance, I think.
Yeah, I don't think...
So,
He doesn't like dealing with that.
He doesn't like directing, he doesn't like directing actors.
Again, he doesn't like directing actors. It's, again, one of the reasons why I think Clone Wars, as much as I keep bringing it up, one of the reasons why I think it has worked really well is George Lucas was involved in the creative direction of the series.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the director. That was Dave Filoni.
Yeah. I think that, like, when he's not the director and screenwriter, it flourishes.
We get Empire, and we get Return of the Jedi.
But as a visionary, world-building, creative mind, he's a genius. It just, like, translating all of that energy onto paper and onto screen.
I saw someone make this...
Only in his hands, I feel like, doesn't always work.
Yeah, in his hands it doesn't work. I remember one person made an argument that a lot of the problems with the prequel scripts, I think they were actually... Because I saw there's a thread on Reddit about Phantom Menace today, of all days. And someone made the comment that the problem with the prequels is if there's a bunch of lines where if you spent 5% more time working on them, they would have ended up better. I have argued in the past with Revenge of the Sith that it was one or two script doctors away from being really, really good. And watching this again, I'm like, I think this was one script doctor away from being really, really good. But it was also some casting choices being different away from being good. Mm-hmm. And I think if another writer had gone in, I think Jar Jar would have been toned down, and I think Anakin would have been aged up. But again, going back to being the 10-year-old in the theater, there's something about seeing someone your own age. And I think that's why he did it.
Yeah.
And as much as I think narratively it would have worked better if he was older, and I still would have been able to relate to that 14-year-old as much as I would have to a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
10-year-old me totally loved it.
Like, you just happened to be 10 at the time. There were other people at the same time that were older or younger, and they still went and saw it, you know. So for you specifically, you were the same age, but not everybody watching it was. I don't know. It's just, I can't, it's like, it's not a thing that I want to spend 2 hours of my life rewatching.
Well, you will in a few months.
I don't know. I'd rather just rewatch Friends.
Oh, no, because we got, like, honestly, it's like Revenge, like, this year, like, side tangent, I mean, we might as well, because this is, again, May the 4th. Star Wars Day, yay.
Yes, this is May the 4th.
May the 4th. This year is a crazy year to be a Star Wars fan.
Well, yeah.
Mandalorian is coming out in November.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you have, there's some games, which I know you will never play.
No.
Clone Wars is rumored to be coming back maybe this year, but it probably won't be until next year. But then you also have Rise of Skywalker. I think the reason why I'm saying I think you'll watch it again in a few months is I know I am probably going to, as part of the, oh my god, the saga's ending, marathon all 9 in some way. Maybe not all in one sitting, because that would be overkill. But I can see myself doing like 2 of the movies a weekend, then the next weekend
I did that with Harry
more.
Potter once. It was a long day. Yeah,
I don't think you could do Star Wars in a day anymore. I think that would be overkill.
No.
But I think
I would fall asleep. That's what happened. I wouldn't do it. I'd fall asleep.
Yeah, but...
No, I'll probably skip the prequel.
And just go straight into the...
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I won't, because, well, I'm me.
Yeah, you're you. Anyway.
But, yeah, unless you have any other thoughts?
I will not condone a course of action that leads us to war. That one wasn't very good. I haven't seen it in a while.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it. Thank you for joining me, Caitlin.
You're welcome. Oh, we didn't talk about the Viceroy. I did kind of like the Viceroy. They were stupid. Just now.
Do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
No, they're just real goofy.
Well, they were real goofy, but it's also there's a racism problem in the prequels, especially.
Yes!
Like, the Gungans, kind of racist. The Nemoidians, kind of racist. I've heard some people try to argue it's like, well, no, it's trying to create like a unified culture, so they're going to like type, and it's like, yeah, but
unified culture.
Yeah, well, for like the culture of that they were depicting, like in the case the Nemoidians culture, so they would try to like lift from other cultures, but it's like when you have done two underrepresented groups in the case of,
and then cast all white.
Yeah, there's definitely. This is one of the things I think the sequel trilogy has definitely done better. Is the recognition that, hey, it's a galaxy far, far away. There's going to be people of color.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, that's, I think, our
even
final note.
stormtroopers of color.
Oh, God. Like I said, there is a rant coming. A very long rant coming about that stuff.
Anyway.
And I guess now is the time for some housekeeping. Lights Camera Reaction will return. It's a matter of when, not if, and just needing to take the time to sit down and hammer all that out. But if that's not enough for you, and for some godforsaken reason you still want my thoughts on film, you can always find my film reviews at 50words.reviews. Yes, that is an actual domain name. Or if you are social media inclined, you can always find them at 50words reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You should also make sure to follow Quality 3 on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so you can always stay up to date on all of the new content coming out of the new home of Lights Camera Reaction. That's Quality 3 or www.quality3.net. And until next time, enjoy the movies.